The water was crimson. Zainab's hands trembled as she pressed them against Kang-Lee's chest, his blood warm and sticky between her fingers. His eyes, those impossibly blue eyes that had shown her what love truly meant, were fading like stars at dawn. Around them, gunfire echoed off shipping containers, while Dae-Young's men closed in like wolves circling wounded prey. This was supposed to be Christmas Eve, a night of miracles and hope, but all Zainab could taste was salt, blood, and the bitter truth that sometimes love demands the ultimate price. 14 days earlier, Zainab had believed Christmas miracles were nothing more than fairy tales for children who still had mothers to tuck them in at night. She stood in her cramped apartment, hanging a single strand of faded lights across a window that overlooked the grey Seoul streets below. At 24 years old, she had survived 14 Christmases without her mother. 14 years of wondering what happened that terrible night when she was 10. When she woke to find her mother's bed empty, sheets stained with blood, and no body ever recovered. The police had given up. Her father had given up too, in his own way, drowning himself in soju until the man who once told her bedtime stories about ocean princesses became a stranger who could barely remember her name. She touched the necklace at her throat, the only thing her mother left behind. It was strange, made of some material that looked like pearl, but felt warm against her skin, with an orchid design that seemed to shimmer in certain lights. Her mother had always worn it, never took it off, not even to shower. Zainab wore it now, a connection to a woman who had vanished like morning mist. The apartment door burst open with a crash that sent her heart into her throat. 3 men in black suits entered, moving with the casual violence of people who knew no one would stop them. Behind them came more, until her tiny living room felt suffocating. Her father stumbled out from his bedroom, still drunk, his face going pale. "Mr. Park," the lead man said, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. "Dae-Young sent us. Your payment is overdue." "I need more time," her father slurred, backing against the wall. "Just 1 more week. I swear I'll have it." "You said that last week, and the week before." The man smiled, but it never reached his eyes. 100 million won. You gambled it away in 3 nights. Impressive, really. Zainab's blood turned to ice. 100 million won. That was impossible. That was a lifetime of debt. "I don't have it," her father whispered. "Please, I'll do anything." "Anything?" The man's gaze slid to Zainab, traveling up and down her body in a way that made her skin crawl. Dae-Young thought you might say that. He's prepared to be merciful. The other men parted like a curtain, and through the door walked a man who commanded attention simply by existing. Dae-Young was perhaps 40, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her apartment's annual rent. His hair was slicked back, his face handsome in a cold marble statue kind of way. When he looked at Zainab, she felt like a butterfly pinned to a board. "You must be Zainab," he said, his Korean perfect and precise. "Your father has told me about you. Top of your class in archaeology. Wasted potential, working at that tiny museum cataloguing artifacts no one cares about." "What do you want?" Zainab asked, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Direct. I like that." Dae-Young circled her like a shark. "Your father owes me a debt he cannot pay. Normally, I would simply kill him. But it's almost Christmas, and I'm feeling generous. I'll offer him a deal." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. "You will come work for me, in my home. You'll cook, clean, and warm my bed when I require it. Do this until your father's debt is paid, and he lives." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Zainab looked at her father, hoping he would protest, would tell this monster to go to hell, would be the man he used to be before alcohol destroyed him. But her father just stared at the floor, shoulders slumped in defeat. "And if I refuse?" Zainab asked.
Young pulled a gun from his jacket and pressed it against her father's forehead in one smooth motion. Her father whimpered. Then I paint your walls with his brains, and you watch. Then I take you anyway, but you'll have his death on your conscience. Choose. Zainab's mind raced through impossible options. She could run, but they'd catch her. She could fight, but there were too many. She could scream, but in this neighborhood, no one would come. Her eyes fell on her mother's photograph on the wall, young and beautiful and smiling. What would she do? She would survive. She would endure. She would wait for her moment. I'll come, Zainab said quietly. But you don't touch my father again. That's my condition.
Young lowered the gun, smiling. See? We can be reasonable people. Collect your things. You have 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes felt like 5 seconds. Zainab grabbed clothes, her mother's photograph, a few books. Her hands shook as she packed, her father watching from his bedroom doorway. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, Zainab. I never meant for this to happen. She wanted to scream at him, to curse him for his weakness, for gambling away not just money, but her entire life. But when she looked at his face, ravaged by grief and alcohol and self-hatred, she saw only a broken man who had lost his wife and was now losing his daughter. I know, she said, and meant it. I'll be okay, Appa. I'll survive this. But as Young's men escorted her out into the cold December night, snowflakes just beginning to fall, Zainab wondered if that was a promise she could keep. The drive to Young's compound took them out of the city proper, into an area of warehouses and industrial buildings near the waterfront. His home, if you could call it that, was a fortress. High walls, security cameras everywhere, guards with guns standing at attention. They passed through 3 checkpoints before reaching the main house, a sleek, modern structure of glass and steel that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine, not a crime lord's lair. Inside, everything was pristine, cold, expensive. Marble floors so polished she could see her reflection. Modern art on the walls that probably cost more than most people earned in their lifetimes. A chandelier that sparkled like captured stars. Your room, Young said, opening a door on the 2nd floor. It was small, barely larger than a closet, with a single bed, a tiny desk, and a window that looked out over the compound. Bars on the window, she noticed. Not a room, a cell. You'll wake at 5, Young continued, his voice businesslike now. Prepare breakfast by 6. I take my coffee black, 2 sugars. Lunch at noon, dinner at 7. The kitchen staff will show you my preferences. You'll clean the house, do laundry, and be available whenever I call. Understood? Understood, Zainab said through gritted teeth. Oh, and Zainab? He turned at the door, his expression unreadable. Don't try to run. I have men everywhere. And if you do manage to escape, I'll assume our deal is void. Your father dies. Clear? Crystal. He left, locking the door behind him. Zainab waited until his footsteps faded before letting herself collapse on the bed, finally allowing the tears to come. She cried for her situation, for her father, for her mother who wasn't here to help her. She cried until there were no more tears left, until she felt hollow and empty as a shell washed up on shore. Then she stood, wiped her face, and began to plan. She was an archaeologist. She was trained to observe, to analyze, to find patterns and weaknesses in structures that had stood for centuries. This was just another puzzle to solve. She would learn Young's routines, his habits, his vulnerabilities. She would find a way out. She had to believe that. The alternative was accepting that this was her life now, and Zainab refused to accept that. Through her barred window, she could see the ocean in the distance, dark and vast under the winter sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the walls and the guards and the guns, was freedom. She just had to survive long enough to reach it. The first week was hell. Dae Young was impossible to please. The coffee was too hot or too cold. The eggs were too runny or too firm. The rice wasn't the right texture. And when she got something wrong, which was often by his impossible standards, he would throw the plate across the room, food splattering the pristine walls, and make her clean it while he watched with those cold, dead eyes. But worse than the criticism was the violence. It started small. A shove here, a grab of her wrist there, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Then it escalated. On the third day, when she brought his lunch 5 minutes late because the kitchen staff had given her wrong directions to his office, he slapped her across the face so hard her ears rang. She tasted blood from a split lip. "Punctuality," he said calmly, as if he hadn't just hit her, "is a sign of respect. You will respect me, Zainab, or you will learn why people fear me." She learned quickly to move through the house like a ghost, silent and unobtrusive. She learned which floorboards creaked, which hallways he frequented, when to make herself scarce. The other staff, mostly older women who worked in the kitchen and cleaning crews, avoided her eyes. They had seen girls like her before, she realized. They knew how these stories ended. If you loved this story, comment episode 2 now. Like, comment, and subscribe.